Hey everybody, welcome back to 30 Days Until Dawn. I'm John Branningham. We've been working on ekphrasis, especially this week, California ekphrasis. And we're going to talk about one of my favorites today, which is who is Richard Diebenkorn. And I got interested in him primarily because I was interested in Edward Hopper, and he was a devotee of Edward Hopper, and he did a lot of stuff that kind of looks like his, or at least is inspired by his. And the one we're looking at today is Cityscape 1. And it's interesting. Now, if you take the idea of Edward Hopper, and you know, as I went through and I wrote my book with Jeff Gressley, I really learned to hate Edward Hopper because it was so lonely and distant, and everything was so, I don't know, almost sociopathic. And this Diebenkorn's is too. You can see that influence. What you have is a cityscape in which no person exists. But I think it's interesting too because it's the California cityscape. So what you have is this was more true back then, and now I'll go to places like Oxnard and I'll see this, where you have the city just end and these fields of vegetable growing crops, fields of crops starting, and he's got that right at that moment. And we're looking at the shadows come in, and really the shadows become the star of the show in a way that Edward Hopper always made light the star of the show, right? It's that the people were kind of incidental, their things were incidental, it's the interesting play of light and whatever. So now, what am I going to do? Well, if I were going to be writing this poem about this place, I'd probably write about the lack of humanity. This is his cityscape. There is no humanity in a cityscape, right? In fact, half of the painting, and I believe, just out of my memory, less than half, is actually of buildings, which is an interesting thing to call a cityscape. But he's making a statement about California and the nature of cities in California, and they are, at the time there's more so, but even now, they are in part agrarian and part urban, right? And so that the two kind of mix. I drive the 57 a lot of the times. I used to drive the 57 every day, and there's that part in the 57 freeway where you just are in Fullerton, and then you're not in Fullerton anymore, you're in this rolling hills of what's owned by Standard Oil, of black oak trees, and then suddenly you're back in the middle of the city again. And that's something that's not unique to LA, but it's certainly a very specifically LA thing and California thing. And that's what he's focusing on there. I might also take a look at his technique. I might talk about abstraction. It's different than California plein air painting, which we've seen a couple of days. It's static in a way that it isn't. That might be an interesting thing to write about. Okay, so when you're done with that, put it down below, and I'll see you tomorrow, 30 Days Until Dawn.